All right, and we're live. Hi, everybody. This is Heather and Deb. Well, Deb and Heather. I'm saying it wrong. Yeah. Anyway, welcome to Reluctantly Woo Woo. We are on episode 21. Ooh, very fitting as we kick off 2021.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, perfect.
I looked them up and I wrote number 21 and I didn't even pick up on that.
That's awesome. So it's January 1. For anybody that's watching live, you obviously know that. If you're listening to us recorded, Happy New Year. But we're going to talk about goal setting today and why we think maybe that's not the way that you should go to kick off your new year. So we call this Reluctantly Woo Woo because we were both originally in that space of thinking this woo woo stuff might be a little bit out there and crazy. And then we reluctantly started to see that these things actually work. So we're going to talk about, in this particular episode, goals, obviously. But if you are new to our podcast and want to check out some of our other episodes, we dive into a lot of those different practices that seem a little bit crazy, but somehow they really do work. So let's talk about goals. I don't want to bash on SMART goals, but I kind of hate SMART goals.
I kind of hate them. I hate them. I hate goals. I hate goals. And yeah. I'm a coach. As a life coach, I will say I hate goals. I have no problem saying that whatsoever.
Yeah. So controversial. I love it. If anybody's going to want to chime in and say, you guys are stupid, I would welcome that in. But let's talk about it because I know, we've worked together a lot in the past, actually. And I loved the approach that you had early on when we first connected about the difference between setting goals and how you approach it. So why don't you give a little background on that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I just always hated goals, and maybe there's some underlying things that I need to go to therapy for, as far as like not wanting to be a failure, that kind of stuff. But goals, and in the realm of personal development that I started in like the Tony Robbins world, right? It's a very masculine thing, right? It's like, go, what's your thing, strive, achieve, right? And
Conquer, yeah.
Right. And it just never felt good to me at all. And what I talk about when I'm working with somebody one-on-one, I always somebody comes to coaching for a specific purpose. And so we'll look at what the reason is. And so I'll just throw out an easy one, especially one that everybody uses now on, the 1st of January is like, my goal is to lose weight. Right. So like we get clear that they want to lose 25 pounds. Just a total aside, right? We do talk about the fact that if you want to lose weight, right? The same as if when you lose your keys, we are conditioned to go find it again. And so the reason why you keep losing weight, having to lose weight over and over again, is because you've done just that. You've lost it, and now you go look for it again, and you lose it and go look for it again, instead of saying, I'm going to increase my health and release excess weight. Right? Like setting the intention to release something is very different than losing it. Right?
I like it.
Yeah. So that's a whole other side. But when they say, if I have them say, my goal is to lose 25 pounds, right? I have them say it out loud and just notice how it feels in their body. And 9.9 out of 10 people will say, like, it feels hard, it feels heavy, it feels like it's not doable, like it's something over there, but it's not doable. Okay? So if we think that something's heavy, hard, not doable, like how the hell are we going to do it? Like we're not, right? And so why do we want to set ourselves up for failure? And so then I have them say, after we've tweaked the losing and releasing weight, I have them say, I'm experiencing releasing 25 pounds. Okay? And then I ask them how that feels in their body. And inevitably, 9.9 out of 10 people are like, that feels lighter. Like that feels easier. That feels like, oh, wait a minute. Like I'm doing this already, instead of like nothing will happen until I get to this point.
Right. Yeah. I think there's when you're chasing a goal or some achievement that feels so far off, you don't feel the immediate payoff versus if you are choosing to be healthier and you make some healthier choices today, you experience a benefit immediately. Like if you can feel the oh, I feel more nourished or whatever those things are. We'll get into the, the actual feelings piece, but I think that's an important thing is when you're chasing something that seems 5 months away, it's doesn't feel like the decision you make today has a huge impact on that versus if you're just trying to feel a certain way today, the decision you make today does have a huge impact on that.
Exactly. And so that leads into the second part of this. So the first part is to ditch the word goal, like get rid of it. And I every once in a while will say it because we're so conditioned to use that word, right? But I will, when somebody's like, "What's your goal?" Like I always say, like I am experiencing X, Y, and Z, right? Like, or I'm going to experience X, Y, and Z, right? But it's so rare that I'll ever write down my goal is to, right? Because again, I don't want it to be separate for myself. So then the next part of it is, I explain it in this way, is that if someone comes to me as a coach and they say, my goal, right, is to win the gold in the Olympics. And I say, and I'm just like a regular old, coach. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, so how will you know that you'll win the gold in the Olympics? And they're like, well, if I can run a mile, like if they're running track, if I can run a mile in a minute and 30 seconds, then I'll know, right? That's a measurement. Then I'll know that I can win the gold. I'm like, okay, well, and then what are your action steps? And then they're like, well, I got to train with my trainer. I got to eat this many calories. I got to, do all these things. Right. So they have their clear quote unquote goal, right? They have their measurement, they have their action steps, right? And those are parts of the SMART goal type things, right? And then they focus for days, weeks, months, years, win the gold, win the gold, win the gold. And the Olympics come and they win the gold, and then their 15 minutes of fame are up. What happens? They're like, oh, that was it, right?
Right.
And so then if on the other hand, right, they're focusing for days, weeks, months, years on win the gold, win the gold, win the gold, right? That's my goal, win the gold. And the Olympics come and they don't win, right? What happens? Right? They go into a funk, right? Typically both types, they're going into a funk, right? So if they come to me, right, and they hire a really great life coach, and they come to me, and I say, like, dig deeper than just like, okay, well, what's your goal, right? You see, I really like it just so bothers me. But and I say, okay, so when you win the gold, how's that going to feel? And they're like, wow, that feels significant, and that feels like I feel a lot of pride for myself, and I feel really accomplished. And I said, awesome. So what you're really looking for is not to win the gold. You're looking to feel significant and proud and accomplished. And they're like, yeah, that's actually what I want. Right? So not that we abandon, going for the gold, so to speak, but we incorporate every single day in what ways can I feel significant, proud, and accomplished. So when you do those action steps, when you work out with your trainer, when you eat X amount of calories, and which I don't recommend for anybody, but as athletes, I understand that's a thing. When you're doing those things, right, check in and say, oh, am I feeling proud of myself, right, that I did this today? Right? Do I feel accomplished? Do I feel significant that I'm training to become this elite athlete, right? And so every single day, they're finding ways to feel significant and proud and accomplished. And for days, weeks, months, years, they're focusing every single day on significant, proud, and accomplished. And they go to the Olympics and they win the gold, right? How do they feel compared to when all they did was focus on win the gold, right? That 15 minutes of fame are up and they're still going to feel great because they were focusing on the feelings. And if they focus on feeling significant, proud, and accomplished every single day for days, weeks, months, years, and they go to the Olympics and they don't win, right? They're still going to feel exponentially better, right? Because they, for days, weeks, months, years, layered upon layered upon layered, finding ways to feel significant, proud and accomplished. And so if they don't win, well, yeah, it'll suck, right? But the experience is going to be totally different if you only focused on win the gold.
Right.
Right? So one, knowing, like, creating an experience for yourself, right, is very different than I'm going to do this goal that's something out there. And then getting clear on what are the feelings that you want to feel from that and focusing on that every single day. And so a lot of times people will talk about having like a word of the year, Okay. Or when I work with my clients, we talk about like our core desired feelings, which is from Danielle Laporte's desire map, right? So either whether you have 1 word of the year or 3 to 5 words of the year, right? Looking to experience those, because everything that we think that we're doing is only to feel a certain feeling. And so if we just go to the end route that we want, which is to feel a certain feeling, right? And then look for ways to create that, then we're going to have so much more uh, fulfillment, rather than, well, when I get here, I can't be happy until, right? Which is all what goal setting is all about.
Right. Which touches back on a few episodes ago when we talked about feeling happy, because you get there and you realize that didn't change you. If you didn't feel happy on the way there, you're not going to feel happy when you get there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can talk about like, what you want to experience, and then what are the feelings, and then people still get stuck. Right. And this is where the woo-woo stuff comes in. Right. And this is where a lot of coaching is like, well, you just weren't serious enough about it. Right. You didn't really want it. And then there's all this blame and shame that gets put on people, which is not helpful at all. If you're being coached or coaching someone and putting blame and shame on them, right? Like how does that help somebody move forward? It doesn't at all. Right. So we have to dive into the underlying, like into the underbelly of it, which will always come down to, I don't feel that I can be aligned with that identity. So the example that I gave at the beginning of, saying somebody that wanting to release 25 pounds, right? They may not feel like it's safe to be 25 pounds lighter, right? They may not feel like they're worthy of releasing that weight. And that weight could be like a shield for lots of different, because of lots of different things, because there's trauma, it always comes down to, there's some kind of trauma, and that weight is a layer of protection. And so if you don't feel in alignment, right, with that new identity, then you're not going to get there. Right? You're just going to keep hitting block after block after block. And no matter how much, you could say, I'm going to just get up and say the statement every day and be like, I am an Olympian, or I am 25 pounds lighter, right? Those are things that are helpful to do, but they're not the only things.
Yeah.
And so we have to dig deeper into what's causing me to feel not in alignment with this identity.
Sorry.
Yep. Once we can get clear of that, then we can go in and do the energy work to clear out all of that stuff that makes you believe that you are not that person.
Right.
And so when I opened my bakery, back in 2010, to me, like, it wasn't like I had like my goal, wasn't to like create this bakery, be on TV, like, all these things that happened. Right? My identity that I had stepped into was like, I'm someone who provides like healthy baked goods for people. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, baked goods we don't need them anyway, but like we can have a healthier version, right? But that was my identity. Right? But if someone would have told me, like a coach would have been like, no, you need to set that higher, and have your goal be on TV and be all that stuff. It's like, that would have scared me to pieces, right? Because that was so far beyond where I was. And so as I stepped into, this is who I am, I just provide it, and I'm just going to do this step, right? Then all these other things started like opening up, and I can gradually grow into that person who did all these other big things.
Yeah.
Right? Because my inner world had to adjust to this identity first before I can go to this next identity and go to this next identity. And so if you have a goal and you're like, okay, well, last year my goal was to make X amount of money. Okay, this year was a shit show. So for like, there are plenty of people who really did do phenomenal this year, and other people who didn't, right, at all. And for a lot of people, not everybody, I got to be careful what I say. But for a lot of times, the reason why, right, that things didn't happen is because they thought, I couldn't be that person who makes it. Because even if you lost a job, like, there's ways to do it. I saw this, I think it was like a TikTok or something, Instagram reel or something, of this guy who was surprising his wife because he just bought her childhood home, and her dream was always to raise a family in her childhood home. and her parents had to sell it years ago because of financial issues. And he was saying, it was one of those videos where they hold up signs and they keep dropping it down, and it has like,
Yeah.
and he was saying how he had lost his job, because of all the shutdowns. And he's like, so I created my own business and we did really well. And here now I can buy this house for my wife. Right? His identity was somebody who's, I'm going to make things happen. Right. And he made it happen. Right. So I know some people will be like, but Heather, you don't understand. You're right. I don't.
Yeah. Right. I mean, but there is a reason why there are people. I mean, I think that 2020 is a good example. I was just saying this to a friend the other day because he was saying, think of how many industries have changed and how many ghost towns have been created by all of these losses. And I mean, that is a thing. And I am very sorry to anybody that has experienced that. But there are people that are inherently creative, believe themselves to be creative, believe themselves to be successful and agile and whatever little buzzwords we want to use, but they will find a way to create success for themselves in a new environment. And that's why the same people are often successful over and over and over again. I'm listening to, we had talked about it offline before here, but the follow-up to The Secret, The Power, there's another one after that that's called The Hero. And it goes through like Laird Hamilton and Sarah Blakely, Pete Carroll. Like there's a lot of examples of real life people and how they achieved their dreams. And really it all comes down to a lot of belief that you can.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can say, I remember years ago, I was struggling so much. And I remember thinking, even if I started a trash collecting company, I wouldn't be able to be successful. And because it was like, I didn't think I could be successful. And I mean, there's always going to be trash. Like there's no reason why that couldn't be successful. Right. But I was like, no, I can't be. Right. I had to do a lot of inner work to release all that crap that had me thinking that I couldn't be successful. Right. So I want to tell this story because I tell this story to all of my clients, and I feel like it really like sums up why this whole goal setting thing. And I know like people are always talking about this time of year, like accountability, get an accountability buddy. Ugh, like no, just a whole bunch of no. Right? And I have something different for that, and I'll say this at the end. Is that so? I had this client when I was coaching for Tony Robbins, who was a chef, and she wanted to be able to create like YouTube cooking videos. She wanted to be a YouTube personality with cooking. And so she says to me on a call one time, she's like, well, as my coach, you need to check in with me every day and to make sure that I did my videos. Right. And I was like, okay, first off, a whole bunch of no. Like I didn't say this to her, but I'm thinking, no, like that's exhausting to me. I have zero desire to do that. And, if you were my private client and I was getting paid more, maybe, no, right? Not. I was like, no. But I said to her, I said, tell me something that you did that you're really proud of. And she said, it surprised me at the time. She said, she said, raising my dog. I'm really proud of myself for that. And having not had a dog at the time, I didn't understand it fully. Now I get it more. But I said, well, tell me about that. And she's like, I love that. And I took care of it and how I loved it. And, all these things that she was proud of herself for doing that. So I said, let me ask you this. I said, when you got the dog, did you have the place where you got the dog, have them call you every day and remind you to feed the dog? She was like, no. And I said, did you have to call them every day and tell them that you took the dog for a walk? And she's like, no. And I'm like, did you have to have them call you and remind you to pick up the dog's poop? And she's like, no. And she's getting really annoyed with me at this point. And so I said, I'm like, well, how come you did those things and you didn't had to have anybody hold you accountable to that? And she said, because I was the dog's mom, that's just what I did. And I was like, oh, so you were so aligned with the identity of being the dog's mom, that the how, like the action steps just followed. And she was like, oh.
True. Yes. I love that. We have an example with my, my full-time job, the company that I work for. One of our our CEO, actually, he always says to people like, well, did you drink coffee this morning? And they're like, well, yeah, I mean, most people, right? We'll have a group of people. How many people drank coffee? And most people will raise their hands. How many people drank coffee yesterday? Most people raise their hands. How many drank coffee the day before? They're like, most people. He's like, wow, you guys all must have a whole lot of discipline for drinking coffee. And everybody cracks up. But yeah, no, you do it because you think there's an immediate payoff, or it is that you are the kind of person that drinks coffee for whatever reason. There's a difference. And so, yeah, it's creating that alignment.
Yes. And it's I don't drink coffee because I'm not a coffee drinker.
Right.
I don't smoke because I'm not a smoker. I don't do drugs because I'm not that everybody who does drugs is a drug addict, but I don't do drugs because it's not my identity as somebody who does drugs. Plant medicine is a whole different thing, not a drug.
Right.
But this woman, she's so funny because I was like, so what do you think? What do you think is stopping you from feeling like you're an influencer, like a cooking influencer on YouTube? And she then the real conversation began, right? And then she was able to start, once we uncovered that, and I'm not saying this was a 5-minute conversation, but once we started uncovering her fears and her beliefs about why she wasn't that person, then she started doing it. And so this may seem like it takes a little bit longer to go this way, but in reality, it's quicker, because if you're just going the route of I'm going to do this goal and I'm going to do this thing, well, and I just got to force myself, right? That takes so much energy from you. And go back to the woo-woo thing. Everything is energy. And if our energy feels heavy, it's going to impact every single area of our life.
Right.
But when you're aligned, right, all of a sudden it's like everything's easy and effortless.
Right. Right.
So as you're, whether you listen to this, September 9th of the year, right? Or today, January 1st, right? Is always ask yourself, what is it that I want to experience? Right? What are the feelings that I want to feel? And what is in the way of me aligning with that identity? Mm-hmm. That's where the work is. When you can dig into that and we'll go in and release the trapped emotions and trauma that's stopping you from aligning with that identity, then game on. Things naturally happen. It's oh, this is easy. I'm in that flow state.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and becoming who you need to be to feel those things. So, which doesn't happen overnight, and I think that's maybe another piece to put in the whole idea of goals, or even these core desired feelings. I mean, I did that work with you for years, and I've continued to do it on my own. I don't wake up every day feeling 100% perfect and remembering that that's who I want to be. Some days I'm completely off. That's okay. Just get back on.
Yes, back on. Yeah. And so it's mentioned this about accountability. When I was like, oh, I hate accountability. Because that, again, and there may be people who are like, no, I love accountability. I love all this stuff. Great. If it works for you, know that there are plenty of people who hate this stuff, because I talk to them all the time. They're my clients who are like, oh my gosh, thank you. This makes so much sense. Right. But I was one of my girlfriends that I know from culinary school. We were messaging earlier today, and she was saying some of the things that she wants to start doing this year. And I said to her, do you want a celebration, buddy? We just check in with each other and hey, guess what? I did the thing. And then the other person just goes yay, you did the thing. Yay. Right. There's something that is so encouraging when we're oh my gosh, that's right. You did it. Right. And just when little kids are learning to be potty trained and we're yay, you went on the potty. Right. As adults, we need that too. Right?
That's true. Yeah. I like that. Or even little kids are always like, Mommy, watch me do this somersault. Mommy, watch me do this. Because they do. They inherently feel proud of achieving something new. Mm-hmm. They want that. So I like the idea of the celebration buddy. That's really good, because I know sometimes too, we've talked a lot about who you surround yourself with and that sort of stuff, but sometimes it's a challenge to find the people that are really willing to be helpful or happy for you. Sometimes you have people in your life that, because of their own stuff, can't be happy for your success. Right. So finding someone who's willing to be that, I like that. Just a friend that you can call it that and say, hey, this is it. I'm reaching out to you because I just want you to give me a little woohoo.
Right. We all need that. And it's like, the more that we celebrate, the more than that we want to celebrate. But if it's like an accountability buddy and it's like, did you do the thing today? Oh, like that oppression, right?
Right? And when you're doing it for somebody else, not for you, it's hard to build a lasting habit.
Yeah.
You really have to create the thing that is, like we've said already a million times, but it has to be for you, for your soul to sing.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for someone else, I don't know, just doesn't have the same.
Not the same, but I will say this though, is that I say women and a lot of men too, but tend to be more extrinsically motivated, right? Like we're wired for connection, right? Yeah. So that when we have somebody to be able to check in with, to celebrate with, like, and to know, like I'm the worst, like I'm so much better at doing work on something if I know I'm going to be teaching it. Like, yeah. Study, like if I'm like have to report to somebody and be like, look, I did the thing. Like I always, do you remember in A Christmas Story? Then if anybody's never seen A Christmas Story, it's definitely a must-watch Christmas movie. So I'll set the scene for anybody who hasn't seen it. So Ralphie is a character who the story is centered around him wanting this BB gun for Christmas. And in his class, they had to write a what's it called?
Essay.
Essay. Thank you. They had to write an essay, right, on like what they wanted for Christmas. And he writes about why he wants this BB gun, and he goes and turns it into the teacher. And as he sits down at his desk, he goes into this daydream world where he's just daydreaming about the teacher reading his essay and been like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And she's like, A+, and she's like writing all over the chalkboard, all around the room, like A+++++, and all his classmates are like cheering him, like, yay, you did so good. And then he gets woken up from his daydream. And I often, like, I have people that I work with that like my business manager and stuff, where I'm like, I'm Ralphie. Like, I want somebody to be like, yay, Heather, you worked out. I'm so proud of you. Yay, whatever, you did the thing. Like, and I don't think I know I'm not alone in that, because so many of my, female clients, like they love to be able to have somebody to celebrate with. And so you're doing it for yourself, but it's okay that like you really get jazzed and turned on by the exterior validation.
Yeah, I get that. And I guess on the accountability piece, I know I have at times, not to say like, you need to make sure I did this, but I might be like, I'm going to tell you I did this. Mm-hmm. Because if I've told you I'm going to tell you to do this, if I tell you I'm going to do this, for me, sometimes that is a little bit more of, I don't want to let you down. Not that you know what I mean? So telling somebody else I'm going to do this, or doing some sort of, challenge or whatever with somebody I know that does help me. I guess that's accountability on some level, but I think you're right. I still find that there needs to be an element of I'm doing it for me too.
Right. Well, and that's why you make the choice to do it. Like I choose to work out because I'm doing it for me and I want to feel good. But I want somebody to praise me for it. Heck yeah. Like, I'm not going to be ashamed of that. Like I get pleasure in somebody else being happy. Right. Yeah. And so I want to be happy, for somebody else too.
Yeah.
And so like, if they want to like celebrating, letting them celebrate me. Okay. Great.
Yeah. And I guess that touches on something else too, that again, we'll go to the woo-woo side, because I definitely buy into law of attraction and all of that stuff. So the more that you can really practice truly, truly, truly being happy for the success of others, yes, you will invite more of that into your own life too. So when you have friends that are on the same path, or, again, I guess, I don't know an alternate word for goal, but looking to achieve X as well. When you see them get it, even if they get it before you do, you're really, really happy for them, then you're, genuinely bringing more of that to yourself.
Right. Yes, because living in a state of resentment, right, mm-hmm, does not do anyone well at all. And it's like, I always, I think about I had this one metaphor, now it's totally lost my mind. Yeah. But I mean, I don't want to go to go talk to a friend who's just miserable and grumpy. It's like, yeah, well, you got this. Blah, blah, blah.
Must be nice, man. Yeah.
Right. Right. I'm going to go to the one who's going to celebrate me, even if like they're not having the same successes. And,
Right.
when I do that, that just uplifts myself. And so when we, like, in the energetic world, right, your frequency, if you're living in a low level frequency of shame and guilt and frustration, right, then the only way that you're going to experience the things externally that you want and desire is if it matches internally. So we go back to that alignment thing, right? So how can you experience greatness when you're not aligned internally, with experiencing greatness?
Yes. Right. Right. True. And if you're seeing it in other people, it's evidence that it's achievable for you. So that sometimes is a shift that people don't quite, when you see, I don't know, if you are, or the kind of person that sees somebody else getting something that you want and you think, oh, it's just easier for them or whatever. Like if that is a triggering thought, takes a little practice, but you can also shift that to, oh, wow, I can do the same thing. That's available to me too.
Yeah. And ask yourself, okay, well, what's making it easier for them? What's making it easier is they're aligned with the identity, right? Just freaking align with the identity. And I say that like now I'm sound like one of those male, like, coaches. Just do it, right?
Do it. Yeah. But again, this is where we can help. It takes a little bit of, practice and somebody from the outside seeing that stuff for you. And to go back to the energy work, I think that is a big piece of it. When you can clear up some of that subconscious stuff and make space for the new thoughts.
Yeah. So I mentioned about this thought that like I couldn't be successful even if I own a trash company. You know what? Like if I wanted to right now, I can make a rocket ship company, like, and be successful, which I'm not smart enough to do that. I'm not Elon Musk. I'm definitely not smart enough to do that. But if I wanted to, I can be successful, right? Because I've cleaned out all the crap that made me think that I wasn't able to be successful. And now I'm like, well, yeah, why not? Now, things haven't, like, there's certain things that still haven't occurred in my physical world because I'm still working, on creating them. There's like steps that you have to build. Just because you change your thought doesn't mean that all of a sudden everything, like, you're in a, 15 bedroom mansion and, with this, gorgeous man and, whatever, like, it doesn't happen like that. There does take time, right? But when you can get aligned with that identity, anything becomes possible.
Yeah.
So as you're, planning out this year and looking at this year, ask yourself the question, who do I want to become? Okay? And what are the beliefs and thoughts and stories that I have that are preventing me from being that person? Work on those things rather than I got to do all these things to make it happen. Work on the inner world so that then, like, things just naturally align externally. So that's my rant about goals.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Hope that, for those who hate goals too, that you find it beneficial. And if you have anything that you're like, oh, I know that this is keeping me stuck and this is keeping me stuck, this is where the energy work comes in. This is where going through body code, sessions, I do this with clients all the time, is like, they'll say the statement of like the identity that they want to be, and we'll check the alignment, how aligned they are with it. And then we'll work on whatever has to be released so that they can say, oh yeah, I am that person. Then we can talk about, oh, well, what are the things you need to do? But by that time, we don't even have to have that conversation because they're like, this is what I do as that person. This is what I do.
Right.
Yeah. So if you are feeling stuck and you're tired of doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you want some help this year to actually begin, like, to become the identity that you want, we would love to help you. And again, whether you're listening to this, today, January 1st, when we're recording this, or, September 9th, right? You don't have to wait till the beginning of the year, right, to become a new person and to release the crap that's holding you back. So with that, we'll wrap it up. We'll see you guys next week and have a happy day, whatever day you're listening to this. Bye.
Bye.